cars to me are like art. It's time, it's history. So like what's particularly cool, like I got to hang out with Alice Walton, who is like the most phenomenal art collector ever. And Alice was teaching me about her art collection. And you know, I remember I was standing there looking, I don't know much about art, like even remotely to her league, but she was talking about the time in, you know, what was going on in this painter and all that. And I'm like, wow, that's just like cars. So, you know, usually when you talk to somebody about their craft, you can relate it to cars. People really want to know a little bit about cars, particularly guys. It's easy to relate if you think about it from their perspective and then you describe it, you know, from that angle. Then they have less intimidation of cars.
So out of all the things you've invented for the car industry, which one do you think is most important and why?
I think the next thing I'm going to invent will be the next most important. I hate everything I've done as far as inventions go. Well, look, I think we've reduced friction. It's been the achievement we've made in the last 12 years. I started this company 12 years ago, and we're making a difference. You know, I'm excited about the fact that we have a training center we built in China. We're teaching Chinese people you know, how to fix cars. I think the next most important invention we'll create is going to be around vehicle and identity protection, because I'm worried about micro-terrorism with vehicles, and developing security and identity things that interact between your phone and your car to make sure it's you, and that if somebody hacks into your car, they can't take it over, so stuff like that. That's kind of where I'm focused.
Holdings rocketed higher in November after a big Q1 beat, and you also moved up when you reported a nice earnings report earlier this month. You had sales up 14%. So what's going on? Are we seeing more car accidents out there? Is that what's helping your business so much?
There's a couple things that are driving that today. What we're seeing is a bit of a recovery starting to form at the base level in Europe. And in addition to that, you've had some pretty wild weather patterns, as you've seen in the United States. So that drives up accident frequency. In addition to that, the world is digitizing, so software is becoming much more of a go-to thing than a manual process in insurance claims.
And there's about 100 million or so claims a year. That's a lot of accidents. You have a role in about 28% of those in processing those claims. Can you tell me how you touch all those claims out there?
So we have operations in 68 countries. Of those 68 countries, we are number 1 and number 2. And in many markets, the markets have standardized off the use of our software. And we're processing 28 million of those 100 million claims. But the interesting thing is while technology is pretty obvious to everybody in the United States, where 96% of all claims are processed electronically, the rest of the world, of the 100 million, 50 million of those claims are still done in paper today.
You said number 1 or number 2. Who are the competitors out there? Because it's not a very popular space. Not a lot of competitors I see. Yeah,
so we created the first real global platform, and that's why we have so much market share. We really only have competitors in regional aspects.
It's fairly fragmented.
Very.
And are U.S. drivers safer than those in the emerging markets? Because you're in all those countries around the world. Is it safer over here?
So 1 in 10 Americans have an accident on an annualized basis. So it takes about 10 years for it to get rotated through. Whereas in China, you have 6 out of 10 get in an accident annually. So the accident frequency is much higher, and that has to do with the fact that certain emerging and evolving markets, the people are not quite familiar to driving high horsepower vehicles, distraction of all this technology inside the cockpit of the vehicle. In addition to that, the infrastructures are rough. You go down to Latin America, where we're number 1, and in Mexico, the roads are still pretty in their infancy.
So is that where the growth is going to be for Solera, in the emerging markets, or is there still a lot to go here in the U.S.? Because, you know, right now a lot of people still do claims with pen and paper. You're digitizing this.
Yeah, right. So like I said earlier, 50 million of the 100 million claims, which is going to grow to 160 million claims by the year 2030. So there's a proliferation of automobiles. Today there's about 900 million cars. There's going to be about 1.3 billion cars by the year 2028. So you've got a lot of activity going on around the world. The growth is definitely in the emerging and evolving markets, but in the United States, what's interesting is there's this whole digital lifestyle about the car. The young people, the Gen Yers, they want to actually process the claims themselves using technology. And so that's where in the United States, while 96, 97% of the claims are software assisted, but the younger generation people, they want to do all the processing. They don't want to do it through a phone.
So yeah, all right. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. Car care is going mobile, right? It's getting digital.
It's getting very digital.
Thanks a lot, Tony.
It's the future.
And thank you for watching The Street.
First big LBO of the year. It was a great test to see about investor appetite. What did you learn from that experience?
Well, look, I think when this isn't the first time we've been out there raising capital and during difficult times, but we concentrated really on the strength of the company, not the weakness in the market. So we felt pretty good about being able to hopefully unjam the market, which was seized up at the time. So we waited till we felt like there wasn't going to be much difference other than we would just get priced a little bit for the market issues.
You did want to issue some debt, though, in euros, and you weren't able to do that. What happened?
Yeah, Europe was really seized up at the time. They had trouble with the CLO market. Some of that money wasn't flowing underneath the bigger houses. So it was a little bit difficult, but we had a lot of support from the guys that have invested us in the past, including some of our customers, which are in the insurance industry. But at the end of the day, we just didn't fill the book there. We oversold in dollars, so we just tilted the book a bit, which isn't uncommon when the market is a bit difficult.
So what's your take on the market now? We've seen debt issuance pick up, we've seen CLO issuance pick up.
Yeah, so I think the market is just schizophrenic because of the fact that it's digesting too much data and there's too many issues in the system. Ironically, we're a bit of a bull on the European market because in our business we handle all of the automotive transactions that occur, and in some countries we have very significant market share, and we're able to kind of peek at whether consumers are using credit or debt, or they're just paying cash. And in Europe we see them paying cash more than we do in the United States. So we've been growing and being more aggressive in Europe because we think in the long-term perspective it's going to be a better market. And so I think it'll work itself out.
Does that mean you think the U.S. is going to be weaker, or just that Europe will be stronger?
I think if things get difficult here, you got more trouble because the average American has a couple $1,000s in the bank. And in Europe, when you just see the European people starting to just pay cash, that's what, as you saw these banks with their balance sheet tests and all that, with all this cash that's flowing. So it's an interesting time. I think the biggest issue is the countries that are sucking up a lot of the cash out of the European Union to kind of hold the euro together. So it's a handful of countries.
When you're here and you're talking to investors about your business, what's the biggest concern that they have right now?
Well, we have, what we started our business on was a contact software which helped automate the process when a customer has an accident. So between the body shop, the insurance carrier, the part suppliers, everybody, we automated that space. And over a decade, we took about 55-ish% market share of the world. And we became very successful. But our real aspiration, we're a very innovatively bent company, our real aspiration was to think about it like this. You have 52 to 54 transactions of your car life when you own a car. And so we want to be 20% or 80% of all the data and software associated to those 52 to 54 transactions. And so in order to do that, we don't do M&A at Solera, we do INA, which is we invent and then we acquire. And because we want that historical data, which allows us to give you a better experience, and then we just keep integrating things. And as we had achieved...
You sort of related it to, before you got on air, the Amazon of cars. So it's like the one-stop shop for everything that you need when it comes to your car.
Right, and any participant, whether it be insurers, OEMs, even banks are more and more starting to come into the play because people expect their provider to know about them. and to understand them and to protect their identity and their security. And so the game is changing, and that's why I think you're going to see more LBO-related stuff if the management teams on those companies are innovative and they're focusing on not just thinking about the contact of software, but the content of it.
Because you felt that as a public company, you weren't getting credit for that transition, and that's part of why you went the LBO route.
Right, yeah, so if you read the transcripts, you know, a year before, I had said to the public markets, look, you know, we're doing the right thing. We invested in this. This is the future. You have to have content, and you have to bring all these things to bear, and you got to connect all this because the app war is coming. And, you know, we've been on the forefront of things like this before. So as we were investing that capital, we weren't getting the same equal return to the invested capital. Now, Solera is a very, you know, profitable company and knows how to distribute product globally. And so as the yield was becoming negative, really the opportunity to protect my shareholders at that point was, you know, to talk to private equity, which understands that from a longer-term perspective. You know, to me, guys like me, even private equity is still short-term, but yeah, it was a better choice.
So it was hard to sell that story to investors. You had a better way of selling the story to private equity. What's it like to sell this story now to like investors and credit guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at us, you know, we hit the wall, we opened the markets, you know, we're a profitable company, we had the right story, and, you know, our bonds have traded significantly up, and, you know, that just kind of helped the market. And I think as that happens, you know, the story is easier. I honestly believe some of the guys don't entirely understand some of these transition stories in tech. But if the market's good and if, you know, the trajectory's good, they do a few customer checks and they just kind of buy.
Well, what other companies do you feel like are doing on the same kind of transition that Solera was?
Yeah, so I think companies that are trying to make the shift to content-rich environment is actually Microsoft's trying to make a run at it. I think Dell's trying to make a run at it.
Oh.
I think innovation is the biggest problem with the bigger companies. They're really not set up to innovate, and so, you know, Solera is. It's a very innovative culture, and, you know, we've got good momentum in it, but I think that's where you see companies like that. But it's going to happen at, you know, even at the industrial level, because you're going to have content for your customers at every level, and it's even going to have to be about the product you don't provide them. Information is going to go much closer to the consumer. They're going to have more consumer rights about their information, how it's shared, but you will be responsible to protect them, and your brand can be annihilated. And I think in the next 2 years, you'll start to see regulation forming around customer rights and corporate responsibility about data protection. If you look at my company, it's not huge, but we invested $25 million in identity protection because we know that if somebody gets their hands on this information, they could do harm. Everybody should really be aware of the car as no different today as you are of your phone. You're still kind of treating your car similar to the way you treated your phone 10 years ago, meaning you got rid of it, you didn't wipe it, you know, you didn't think of all those things. And most people don't realize your phone is synchronizing to your car today, and so there's a whole bunch of your personal information that exists there. We realized that if somebody got that information, they could figure out when you're home, when you're not home, you know, how long the distance is between that, and so many violations could occur. So we're going to start to see a lot of companies evolving around protecting you as a person.
To our special guest today. He's an inventor, an entrepreneur, a thought leader, chairman, founder, and CEO of Solera Holdings, Tony Aquila. Solera Holdings was founded by Tony in 2005, and today is a global leader around with more than 6,000 employees, serving customers and partners in 80 countries around the globe. Solera Holdings is a global leader in data and software for automotive, home ownership, and digital identity management. Tony brings a valuable perspective and expertise to the growing international discussion on managing, securing your identity in the world of connected cars. Tony, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Well, we only have 20 minutes. Let's dive in. We hear news, we read the headlines. Car security isn't science fiction anymore. Cars right now are able to connect to outside world in many ways. They send signals to our phones, to infrastructure, to other cars. 2 years ago, we had 2 hackers who were able to remotely connect to a Jeep Cherokee and disabling their steering, brakes, transmission, and other things just by using the car's entertainment system. So Tony, what is the reality of cybersecurity and privacy in the world with connected cars, especially self-driving cars?
So look, I think everybody should really be aware of the car as no different today as you are of your phone. You're still kind of treating your car similar to the way you treated your phone 10 years ago, meaning you got rid of it, you didn't wipe it, you didn't think of all those things. Most people don't realize your phone is synchronizing to your car today, and so there's a whole bunch of your personal information that exists there, which means is the car is still in an infotainment phase. Technology is being used to entertain you, to stimulate you, but in reality, there's a whole bunch of information in there about you, where you go, where you've been, how you drive. Now, there's a bunch of us that are trying to use that information to make the world safer, to make it more secure, but when you start to get all that information flowing from the car, you realize that the car will be used for bad things. I mean, I think if any of you have been around technology long enough and you invent something, you have this epiphany along the way where somebody used your invention for a horrible thing. And you're like, how did they do that? And of course, it happens. And cars will be devices of microterrorism, and that's something that's going to be real. But in the connected car world, there is a whole bunch of information that sits in there that you need to be very conscious of. And you need to be disciplined about that car when you sell it and or when you leave it somewhere, i.e. most people write home for their address. You shouldn't do that. There's just a whole bunch of evolutionary mistakes that are being made in car ownership.
That's actually a nice segue to the next question. Speaking of risk, how do car manufacturers perceive those risks, and what do they do to protect us as consumers from those threats?
Yeah, so the car manufacturer today, has the best of intentions. You should know that. I mean, we work a lot with them. They really want to stimulate you. They want to win your business. They know it's a more competitive world because you have information at your fingertips, and so they're trying to use the infotainment system. And you got to remember, there are 280 suppliers sending information into those OEMs with hardware they're buying or parts or whatever, and some of those are intelligent. Every car by the year 2020 that's built is likely to have an IP address, which means it's very hackable. It's very controllable. It will have different levels of intrusion. But the OEMs today are thinking of infotainment. They're thinking of some basic safety elements. Today, we're working on things with one of the world's leading tire manufacturers about tire performance. Knowing when you should change your tires, not like, oh crap, I need to change my tires. It'll actually tell you, because accident frequency will move up 6 times by the time you change your tires. And cars can be intelligent enough to bring the world as a better place, which is what the OEMs are trying to do. They're trying to win your business, and there's a phenomena occurring, is in the advanced worlds, like the United States, the advanced markets are actually decoupling who they are as a person from the car they drive. 2 car generations ago, which was each generation's about 5.5 years, a person's personality, much like in China, represents the car they drive. That is decoupling, which means the average ownership period of a car is going up. So the OEMs are a little bit afraid, which means service, maintenance, repair is how they'll have to make money. You've seen many controversial things go, well, we're not making money selling cars. We're making money on servicing and maintaining them. So customer retention is a real big issue for the OEMs as the market changes. And they are starting to wake up to security. but they haven't quite got there yet.
Can't wait, can't wait. Well, let's talk about cybersecurity and privacy and the connection between of them. Cybersecurity plays a critical role in protecting our identities in the world of connected cars and devices. I think we're much better with our computers and phones. We have security protocols that protect our data. So I don't think we are there yet with connected cars. So what does the industry need to do to take us to the next level in the world of connected cars?
I think, first of all, they have to understand, and big companies have to make a huge shift. I mean, look, I started my company in my garage. I still have my office in my garage. I don't want to leave that because I don't want to forget, you know, the hunger of what an innovative mind will do. But I think that with respect to the car, the OEMs need to realize that you need to control the content in your car. Because OEMs, I think, still are struggling with the fact that I sold you this car, but the information flowing from it is still mine. That's not going to last. The reality of it is it's going to be yours. You're going to have to be responsible with it because you're going to want the car to stimulate you as much as possible. And so that type of privacy regulation, whether it be by governments, I think some countries in Europe will move before others, but as the PC in the car, the infotainment system synchronizes with your phone, it basically knows a lot about you. And that is another vulnerable point, that you need to make sure you're responsible about your fingerprints, your digital fingerprints. So we realized that we got big because a car, each of you buy a car, but that car has 54 transactions before you sell it. It's 54 touch points along, whether it be tires, brakes, oil, maintenance, recalls, everything. Now, we connected the ecosystem to help you not drive a car when it has a recall and it's an airbag. We did all these things for good reasons, but we realized that each of you have 54 transactions, and nobody got all that information together, so we did. And as we bring that information together, with that information, we could tell so much about you. We could even probably figure out within a standard deviation your credit score. It's pretty crazy.
Wow. All right, only 54 transactions, huh? All right, so you told me that recently you attended a couple of car shows, including Detroit Auto Show. What stood out to you that could impact privacy and security?
So I still think privacy and security is really not high on the agenda. I think infotainment is. It's still about stimulating me in the buying process. Here's the thing, they're still using technology for their benefit. Most companies use technology first for their benefit, second for their customers. And when security and privacy comes up, that's when they'll have capitulated for it to be first about the customer, then about the company. And of course, then you'll retain the customer because you'll have loyalty. So I think the things that stood out the most was autonomy. Personally, I think that's going to be a difficult period when you have 1.2 billion cars on the road that aren't autonomous, and you may be sitting enjoying your latte in your autonomous car, but you'll be whacked by a dude who doesn't have one. And you know, that's the way it's going to work because we live in a cross-populated, technologically unadvanced and advanced time.
Great, I think we have time for one more question. I'm curious, Solera develops software that helps people to manage their cars, homes, their digital identities. What is something people often overlook than safeguarding their most important assets, and what they can do, what we as consumers can do to protect ourselves from hackers and cyber criminals?
Look, every car built since 1996 has an OBD port. Most people don't know that. That port was created to diagnose cars. That's how today, you know, there's no carburation, there's none of these kind of things. They just plug in a device in the computer, software generated by guys like us, will say, here's what's wrong with that car. Here's what it needs, here's what needs to change, so the technician goes and does it. So technology hit this curve through this port where the technician is the 20 and the software is the 80. That's evolution. Before, the guy would listen, he would touch, he would feel, he would smell. Those days are gone. However, that port is very valuable because I believe in the future, since we're all device junkies, that you will be responsible enough to where you will buy a $30 to $40 device that will monitor what happens in your car, and you'll plug it in. And oh, by the way, when I go to rent a car, I'll plug it in, it'll put the seats, everything it can do to my standards, the way I drive safely. It'll lay down things for my calendar and my map, but when I leave, and if I walk away from that car, it will call me and say, hey, you left your device. Pull the device, wipes all your information out. It is going to be a time where you will have to be responsible for your privacy and your information. So no differently than a device, you will buy a car, you will become used to that, and you'll plug it in and you'll protect yourself. Some regulation will occur by government in some countries, some it won't.
Well, I think we still have more time. I'm gonna put you on the spot. So what's next for Solera? What drives you forward? You person who lives in the future, it seems like, and so exciting to see what the company is doing. What's the next step for you guys?
So for us, identity protection is a big thing. You know, we kind of stumbled across it by accident. We were like, oh my gosh, you know, we're doing all these things for you. We're telling you, you know, based on your pattern, we can tell you whether you need, which gas station you should go to. In fact, we can tell you based on the engine you have, which gas you should put in it. And we can just do all those kinds of things. But we realized that if somebody got that information, they could figure out when you're home, when you're not home, you know, how long the distance is between that, and so many violations could occur. So we said, Jesus, we're these auto dudes, we love cars. I mean, you know, my whole life I could go out for a gallon of milk, I'll come back with a new car. I just love them so much. And the evolution of all this made me realize, as we captured all this information, that, oh my gosh, we have to protect people, because if a guy like me hacks into your car, I will know you. And that hit us, and so we ended up putting millions and millions of dollars to work, and we got really crazy passionate. A lot of people, I was public at the time, and a lot of people said, you can't invest this much money in identity protection. I'm like, man, you know, I gotta protect people. I see a big opportunity, and I don't think the world realizes identity authentication and protection with your car, your mobile devices, not to mention microterrorism, is a big thing. So I said, you know what, screw this. I took my company private, and I innovated away. Today, the Dutch government uses that identity software we built for car for every citizen in the Netherlands, because it authenticates you. And you know, we do all kinds of cool things where we're reading your face, your images. We know the probability of you. And so, you know, I think you're gonna start to see a lot of companies evolving around protecting you as a person and giving you the power of your information. So we saw that, and we think that'll help our customers, meaning the OEMs, the insurance companies, the repair shops. People need to be responsible with your information, and you need transparency. And so we're very focused on those things, and today, you know, we track about half the cars in the world.
Well, speaking of transparency, because your company collects data to make sure that data among home, connected devices, cars is helpful to you as a company, but at the same time helpful to consumers and businesses. Where do you draw the line between privacy, security, protection of information? How do you communicate what you do to consumers to make sure that they're aware of what's happening, the gigabytes of data nowadays?
So in our latest technology, which is called the Digital Garage, which is an app you download and it tracks your car through the life of it, instead of like a big legalese, you know, in which you'll just automatically go down and say, I accept to get to the functionality, what ours is it opens up a vault. And that vault starts to monitor any business you do business with that's using the vertical element of the software. And then it asks you, do you want to share information with them? Yes, I do, always. I want to keep it private. No, I'm pissed off at these dudes. I don't want to share any information with them. And it basically, just with a touch, it does that, because the software has to alert you to share or not to share on a more occurrence basis if you choose to. If you choose to be, hey man, I'm wide open, I'm on Tinder anyways, who cares? You know, you just go for it. And you can make a conscious decision of that. But how many of you really read that stuff? I don't even think the lawyers in the room do.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Tony. Thank you for sharing your story.
you.
And we wish you the best of luck with your company. And I think we're done. We're ready for the next panel. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Welcome to Traton TV. Today, live on the show, Tony Aquila, founder, chairman, and CEO of Solera, and brand new Traton partner. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So, Tony, your core business is software. Have you ever been to a real hardware show like IAA?
I have not been here before. We've been to many truck shows around the world. And of course, this is, an iconic show. And of course, as you can see, some of the best innovations of trucking and bus and logistics is here today. So it's pretty exciting for us.
Of course, many innovations. Do you have a personal highlight?
Well, obviously for us, a personal highlight is what this partnership is all about, which is, MAN and Andreas and his team have been focused on building a great truck. One of Andreas's desires was that we focus on also enabling better productivity and a better journey for the truck driver, which we're very passionate about. That's been our core focus, was to improve the truck driver's quality of life, his efficiency, and for him to have everything he needs so he can optimize his day. And if that doesn't happen, of course, logistics slow down. And, when you put those two things together between us and them, we can bring an application that can improve. Think of it like your Facebook for social, but this is a truck app for the journey of a truck driver's life.
Sounds like transforming the transportation business, which is also the main claim of Traton here at IAA. Of course, times are changing, and that asks for having an open mind, also considering maybe new business models, teaming up with the right partners, of course. And we have a brand new partnership here to celebrate. So how do you see this cooperation from your perspective?
Well, from our perspective, we're investing about $1 billion in this journey, and we'll be focusing in on improving the fleet owner, the truck drivers, and the service maintenance and repair of the vehicle so that the uptime is optimized. And, for us, being able to achieve that with Andreas and his team will be very exciting for all the participants. And the way we look at it is, if we can improve the quality of the life of the truck driver, the quality of performance for the fleet owner, and then hopefully Andreas and I will make some money as well.
Of course, so it should be a win-win situation, of course.
We are investing to win.
So thank you for being on the show today, and welcome to the Traton family.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here.
We're glad to be here.
For more exciting interviews with Traton partners, just tune in on Traton TV. Thank you for watching.
We are proud to welcome with us tonight Mr. Tony Aquila, the founder, chairman, and CEO of Solera, a digital technology expert from the United States. Tony, please join me on the stage.
Glad to be here. It's pretty exciting for us to partner with Andreas and his team. And
so, how do you feel to be here at Traton?
I'm really excited. I mean, for us, this is a lot of time and a lot of work by our engineers and many of the MAN team to bring something pretty exciting. So we're really happy to be focused on productivity and the journey of being cool in the truck.
You saw on the movie this, I call it little farm, when the door opens. I was visiting you there. I think when we met the first time, it was very impressive to see this creativity on the digital area. So I'm glad that you seem to be happy.
I'm very happy.
As I said, you and your company are focusing on the digital business in the commercial mobility sector. We are handling hardware, big trucks, nice trucks, and I like them, like I said before. But tell us your opinion how this fits together.
So first of all, for us to be selected was a huge vote of confidence from Andreas and his team, so we thank everyone. But the way we see the world changing is that we have to make sure that the truck driver and the experience of that is continuous with the hardware itself, as we see in all digitalization movements. And so we're very focused on our part of the journey of Traton to bring a better lifestyle and a better journey to being cool in the truck.
So thank you, Tony. It's great to have you on board. Thanks a lot.
You bet, man.
Your LBO in 2016, the markets have ripped since 2016. Do you look back from now in this seat and think maybe it wasn't the right time to go private?
Well, I think from a multiples perspective, for us, it wasn't really about the perfect time, although it was a good time for us because the market wasn't really valuing what we'll call content tech, which had gone beyond vertical into B2all versus B2B or B2C. So that was kind of the main reason for us to go, although we caught it at a time where if you look at multiples today versus what they were back then, you know, obviously we've done very well on a performance level on a multiple basis. But when we did go to raise the debt, we hit the China crisis, which cost us you know, a higher cost of capital during that time. And that was we closed around March of 16.
You've just done an acquisition, Redcap, which takes you into this interesting space sort of between the car dealer and the driver. Why? What's the sort of the logic behind that kind of deal?
Yeah, so if you look, you know, a lot of people talk about blockchain and crypto and all this stuff, but in reality, industry that is powering technology is working between contact events and content events. And when you put them together, you don't get B2B or B2C, you get B2all, as I was referring to earlier. And so when you do that, you have to think about all of the transactions differently. So much like Jeff Bezos and others think, inventors, we think of hardware and software and services. We don't separate them, which is why I think you see the greatest companies in the world, they have software and hardware, and every transaction in the industrial blockchain is either 80% hardware, 20% software, or 20% hardware and 80% software. So it's just a question of which one it is during that evolution. And of course you need people when it's 20% software and 80% hardware. So that's why people like us start to expand into the, if you will, the mobility of vehicles. So you don't want to take your car. I mean, you're here in beautiful LA, you know, if your car's not running right, you're just going to push a button on your phone and some secure person that's been vetted is going to show up, pick it up, drop off your loaner car and go deal with the dealership, so you don't have to go there and drink bad coffee and unfortunately listen to them tell you the car will be ready in an hour. 4 hours later, it's maybe ready.
Now, in the future, if you believe at least what a lot is being written about, the car's going to drive itself to the dealer. We move into this period of autonomous vehicles. Is that something that worries a company like Solera, or is that just a new business opportunity?
You know, I don't even think cars will like driving themselves to dealers, but yet alone people do. I mean, the whole industry is changing a lot. Today, our technology, so as I referred to B2all and hardware and software, today we're tuning cars with our hardware and software over the air when you start the car. Or at 2:30 in the morning, we're checking 90 points in the car. You know, you go on a trip, we'll auto start your car if it's outside and charge your battery so you don't show up with it dead. So the ability to do tech, repair, maintenance, service, all those things remotely is going to be greater and greater. But there will be calibration and all kinds of things that are still inbound because cars moved from a very unique position in the last 2 car generations. You had, when there was something wrong with a car, you could hear it, you could see it, or you could smell it. Today it's very electronic. sensor-wise, even with mechanical engines. And of course, nobody knows how to fix it. And so that's why hardware and software connectivity becomes a big knowledge base. So for us, as ride sharing, share ownership, hailing, all that stuff, if you think about it, there's a major algorithm bust that has occurred in the world. If you think of the Uberizing and the door dashing and all those super convenient things you love, but in reality, somebody has bought a private passenger vehicle and are using it for commercial use, and they're not built for it. So there's a big growth opportunity in service maintenance, repair, and obviously fraud detection for warranty claims and so on and so on.
Now you guys have dropped M&A and you talk about INA, the I being invention or innovation sometimes. When you were acquired 2016 by Vista, the private equity firm, obviously that was an interesting time in the market to go private. What's the exit strategy? Are we going to see Solera back in the public market anytime soon? Is this potentially another private equity trade?
I mean, look, when you're a founder and an entrepreneur and you love your company and you got great people and you're on a mission, and our mission is to provide the content and the contact for the 54 or 250 transactions in a car or truck's life, you'll zigzag to whatever you have to do. I mean, you need capital, you have to invest. We've invested billions, but I never was a big fan of M&A because it's like a giant human trafficking process when you've been sold a few times as you grow up through the ranks. And as an inventor, we kind of do INA more than we do M&A. And that's why we don't focus so much on what we pay, because we have something we're going to bring to that technology and or that team, and then it deleverages the asset really fast. I mean, we deleverage about 5 multiple turns within 24 months.
Just lastly, I'm going to have to ask before I let you go, 2018, do we see an exit or no?
No, you have to put your seatbelt on and find out. Technology is like art. You're developing something that takes a form of its own, and there are many failure steps. And it's not that you fail in technology, it's how you learn to succeed from that failure. But failure is constant. I appreciate 3 kinds of the mindset of people. There are people which like to do things right, and I appreciate them because without them we can't operate every day. But I have a different appreciation for those people who want to do things better, always raising the bar. And the last group, which is a group that I come from, which is the Do It Different group. I have a big appreciation also for the people who live in the future. What inspires me in people is when they give me, when they bring challenges to make the world a better place. I find that very inspiring. And I find people in general want to bring the world to a better place. So for me, the majority of people are very inspiring just by the fact that we live today like we live. This is because of people. So that's inspiration. But what I find the most inspiring of people is innovation that is only focused on making the world a better place, but that they accept that this is a violent exercise, but it's positive violence, not negative violence. Well, I think one should always be in a constant state of dissatisfaction. And in addition to being in a constant state of dissatisfaction, they should also be raising the bar when they fail. Not when they succeed, but when they fail is the most important time. Because raising the bar when you succeed is easy, but when you fail and you raise the bar, you have a chance to succeed. And the last thing is to be uncomfortable. When we are uncomfortable, our minds work at their best, not at any other point. So it's important to be uncomfortable. I believe it depends on the positive violence of the team, because the best energy comes from when people are passionate. And if you think to your greatest moments in sports or in any achievement with others, it has positive violence in it. And we are at our best when we are surrounded with that. So I encourage that in people. Positive violence is a multi-dimensional term. It's quantum in its math, because violence by itself is undetermined and can be seen as negative. What makes violence good or bad is whether the act is for the good of people or the bad. And so I find and I encourage teams to be themselves. Professionalism, I think one should always consider this, but that innovators are often positively violent and different people. The thing I remember the most is when people told me I was crazy and that my idea would never work. And in the beginning, I would think maybe they're right. But today, I have a belief. When I have a new idea and a new invention, like you saw today, when somebody tells me it'll never work, for me, it's a sign that it will be in the future. My most passionate thing is to help children. So to be able to fund initiatives to stop human trafficking and the abuse of children. And this is every year for Christmas or the holidays. This is what I try to make sure I finish my year by protecting some children in the world. We were sitting there and we were working, and it was late at night, and so in Italian, there's a dessert everybody knows called tiramisu. It means to pick me up. So we said we needed to do something that picks people up, not something that gives. Giving doesn't really help. We wanted to do something that picked people up, that gave them a second chance. So the word lift came up. We want to lift people up. So we're going to give them the tools. We're going to give them the 20, just like we do in the company, and they have to figure out the 80. So we'll provide money for education or horses for children with disabilities so that they can learn to ride, but they have to do it. And so it became Life is Full of Transformation, Lift. We've opened some orphanage day centers for children in Cambodia. It's a country we're not even doing business in yet. We built a playground. Our people had to literally, sweat in 100+ degree weather. We didn't hire a construction team to come in and build the playground. We built it with our own hands. We had a great time. It was a great bonding. Everybody felt a great amount of accomplishment from it. But the next level that came, because we constantly are dissatisfied, we decided that we will select 6 people out of the company, and they will write them learn how to manage their money so that they can do it. So it can open up so many doors. But the cool part about the design that we came up with is that when you're selected to go do this 6 months, you have to come back and report to your team what you're doing, with the hopes that your team, so if you're in IT and you're working in an NGO helping them get an infrastructure, that your team back home actually is helping being your 20 while you're being the 80 on this project and just creating some really great things. It's not about knowing where to end, but it's not about knowing where to start. It's about knowing where to go next. And I just can't wait for the first group to get out